Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our top story is President Trump tours the detention center in Florida Everglades known as Alligator Alcatraz. An update on the trip and what we know about the facility. Senators passed the GOP's big budget bill. The vote comes after more than 24 hours on the floor and last-minute negotiations around Medicaid and food stamp cuts. We have details. Columbia University settles a lawsuit brought by students. They say the Ivy League institution used false data to boost its nationwide ranking. Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosting foreign ministers of the Quad Alliance in Washington. How an increasingly aggressive Chinese Communist Party puts regional economies at risk. The Chinese regime is introducing a new form of group leadership, something that can directly challenge Xi Jinping's grip on power. A veteran China analyst sheds light on the matter.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. Senate Republicans have passed the big budget bill. The vote came after an overnight marathon of amendments and last-minute negotiations around Medicaid and food stamp cuts. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the story.
Republicans' big budget bill passed the Senate this afternoon on a vote of 51-50, with 3 Republican defectors leading the vice president to cast the tie-breaking vote. Here's the vice president and the majority leader celebrating the bill's passage.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the vice president votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
With this legislation, we're fulfilling the mandate we were entrusted with last November and setting our country and the American people up to be safer, stronger, and more prosperous.
Democrats were united in opposition, saying the bill gives tax breaks to the wealthy on the backs of working Americans.
When people start losing their Medicaid, when they start losing their jobs, the people of America will remember this vote.
The bill would extend Trump's 2017 tax cuts, stopping taxes on tips and overtime for the working class, also providing $160 billion for border security and immigration enforcement, another $150 billion to boost the Pentagon's budget, and it raises the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, which led Republican Senator Rand Paul to oppose it. The other 2 opposers, Senator Susan Collins of Maine as well as Tom Tillis of North Carolina, were opposed to the bill's Medicaid cuts. Senator Tillis opposing it so much that he said he's not going to run for re-election in 2026. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska secured carve-outs for her state and several other states to soften the blow of federal Medicaid and food stamp cuts. Now, its passage in the Senate is only half of the story. It now needs to head to the House, where there's already opposition. Leaders scheduled a vote for tomorrow, but there are a handful of Republicans who aren't happy with the Senate's work. And amid this opposition, President Trump anticipated that the July 4th deadline might be off the table. Here's Trump.
I'd love to do July 4th, but I think it's very hard to do July 4th. It was 2 months ago. I would think maybe July 4th, but somewhere around there.
House Speaker Mike Johnson stating immediately after the Senate's passage that House Republicans are ready to finish the job and will put the bill on President Trump's desk in time for Independence Day. So we'll have to see if House leaders keep their plans to hold this vote tomorrow or if they need more time to get members on board. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
President Trump applauds the tax bill's passage in the Senate as he tours a detention center in Florida known as Alligator Alcatraz. What he's saying about mass deportations and how he's reacting to a fresh feud with Elon Musk. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. So good afternoon, Iris. First of all, how did the president react to the latest progress on the Hill?
Good afternoon to you as well, Dawn. So President Trump today was touring a new illegal immigrant detention center called Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. And he learned about the news while holding a roundtable there. He calls it music to his ears, as apparently this big, beautiful bill containing his legislative agenda, for example, like boosting border funding as well as extending his 2017 tax cuts, is now one step closer to getting passed in the House next and also getting onto his desk by the July 4th deadline. And the president also again pushed back on criticism on Medicaid cuts, saying that the bill would only root out waste and fraud in social programs like Medicaid instead of hurting hardworking Americans who actually need it. Watch.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thank you. Three things. Social Security, we're going to take care of it beautifully. Medicare and Medicaid, and we are going to save it.
Despite the latest progress, the bill is encountering a fresh wave of criticism from billionaire Elon Musk. On Monday, Elon Musk posted a flurry of posts on X, again, of course, criticizing the bill for its potential impact on the national deficit, and again, this time by threatening to boost midterm primary challenges to defeat Republican lawmakers who voted for this bill. And President Trump, in response, threatens to have DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency, which Musk previously led himself, to now have DOGE look into Musk's government subsidies and government contracts, which Trump says could save the country a lot of money. Watch.
So I think what's going to happen is DOGE is going to look at Musk. And if DOGE looks at Musk, we're going to save a fortune. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't think you should be playing that game with me. Mr. President.
The two men previously had a public feud already, though, but that ended with Elon Musk posting publicly on X saying that he went too far with his attacks. It remains to be seen how this fresh wave of standoff between the two men will now unfold. Back to you.
And Iris, the president today toured an illegal immigrant detention center in Florida. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So President Trump today headed down to Florida to tour that detention facility called Alligator Alcatraz with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who President Trump today said he has now a 10 out of 10 relationship with. And Trump says that the facility, which will hold up to 5,000 beds, will house some of the most vicious people. Watch.
It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation.
Meanwhile, President Trump today also told reporters that he will be looking to potential deportation exemptions for workers in the construction as well as agricultural industry. And that, he says, that decision will come down hopefully in the coming weeks. Back to you.
Okay, Iris, thank you. And joining us now to discuss the big, beautiful bill at the Alligator Alcatraz facility is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of Can We Please Talk podcast. Also joining us is Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for the Daily Signal and host of Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. First of all, good afternoon, Tony. Good afternoon, Mike. Good to see you both. I'll start with you, Mike, today. The bill just passed the Senate, right? The pressure now is on House Republicans, but, you know, several have said they don't support the version from the Senate. Do you expect Republicans to fall in line in the days to come?
Yes, that's pretty much it, Don. I mean, it's like we keep chasing. First of all, good to see you guys both. But we keep chasing these stories, and I've said this a bunch on this network. Like, we keep chasing who are going to be these no votes, and they always end up coming around. Lisa Murkowski is a perfect example of this. Now, yes, she was able to get some concessions for Alaska residents with respect to the bill, and Susan Collins kind of migrated over into the no column. But I don't know, out of the people that have been talked about right now on the congressional Republican side, obviously we already know Thomas Massie is a no. You can throw that vote away. But I'm trying to think of who else would be in this column that they're so firm and adamant right now from a media perspective, saying that they're going to be a no. And then when this bill comes forward, they're going to vote as a no. Those are two different things, Don. And one thing I will echo, though, is that when I talked to a couple of House folks recently on the show, we've had a few House Democrats on the program, some who have been very open. Obviously, they're going to vote along party lines. But one of the biggest things that they mentioned to me was we need to see what the version comes back from what the Senate sends us back. And I think there is obviously a difference in terms of the version that's going to be sent back to them right now than what they voted on back in mid-May on a very narrow margin of 215 to 214. So maybe somebody could be convinced on, but I haven't seen evidence otherwise with respect to all of this voting of somebody who's so hardline stance from the media perspective, and then all of a sudden when they go to actually vote on it, they vote that same direction.
Okay, Tony, your thoughts. Will moderate and conservative House Republicans, who have concerns, right? Do they have to pause their ambitions to get the bill passed before the deadline?
Yes, they will. And I think Mike is right on the money here. We actually see this quite often with both parties. You have some individuals who either come forward in committee and inside caucus, like you see in the Democrat Party, or out in the open on loud social media posts like Republicans often do. And they talk a really big game. But the unfortunate and perhaps the very fortunate part of how the House was built to function is that you're going to have Republicans from New York who have very different views than perhaps Republicans in my home state of Indiana might have. And that means you have to do a little bit of concessions. And that means that right now, given the state of the two parties in the Senate, I just spoke this morning with, for example, Representative from Texas 3rd, Keith Self, about some of the financial expenditures. He's not pleased with a lot of stuff in the bill, but he was able to get some concessions. A lot of Democrats were able to voiced some concerns that pulled over a couple of Republican senators over on some things like providing funding for Planned Parenthood. That did not end up passing. But as far as Senator John Thune and now Representative and Speaker Mike Johnson, I think you're going to see this pass through. Whether or not it makes it by the 4th of July, I doubt it. I think there's going to be a little bit of arguing and a little bit of showboating that takes place first. But as is the Congress of the United States of America, and that's why Congress as a whole has such a low approval rating. It's a lot of political theater.
Okay, just a couple more points here before we talk about the alligator Alcatraz. Mike, what do you think of Musk's recent comments expressing his dissatisfaction on the bill? And you heard Trump say earlier, don't play this game with me.
Well, I mean, first off, the back and forth of that, I would prefer that both of these guys don't go back and forth with each other with respect to the media and the tweets. And obviously, I know some people will take what the president said as a threat to potentially deport Elon Musk. But look, at the end of the day, you got to look at what the core issue is for Elon Musk, right? And it's about potentially the environment and saving our planet and the industry that he works in, which helps with that with respect to electric vehicles. And the president addressed that in his Truth Social post saying, like, you know where I stood on this from the entire period of time on this EV mandate. I believe in electric vehicles, but I don't believe everybody should own electric vehicles, I think was what the tweet said. So, or the post on Truth Social, wherever it was. So the back and forth obviously is not helpful. It is funny and ironic for me, someone as me who has been covering this, who called this happening once upon a time, because you could see it. The writing was on the wall, right? This is what happens when, Elon Musk is not an elected official. He was a special government employee, right? He came in with a purpose and an intent, and he had a certain expiration date. And when that expiration date leaves, now he's back as a private citizen, and the government continues to function. Whether or not they carry forth his principles of Doge and continue to do that, they're doing some of that. Some of those things they've gotten rid of. So that's that. It always had a shelf life, Don, and the relationship had a shelf life. I mean, this is because he's not an elected official. He was not appointed to anything outside of this government of efficiency as a special government employee. So the writing was on the wall that this was always going to come to a head. And now Elon's using his platform, Twitter, to make the biggest gripes, and the president is countering back on his platform to make the gripes back.
Okay, Tony, any thoughts you have on this?
Again, I'm largely in agreement with Mike. This is something that actually our friendship was kind of hit off on, is that the tenuousness of these kind of special government situations. And I'll say this, from the more right-leaning side of the aisle, I understand a lot of the gripes that Elon Musk has with the bill. I really don't like government spending myself. However, unfortunately, the Republicans and the Democrats and the vast constituency of the United States simultaneously wants low taxes and high government spending. Those two things don't mix. No matter how much one administration might say, oh, we can grow out of it, and the other one says, well, if we just have the right groups pay the fair share, then supposedly the billions will actually equal trillions and it'll be wonderful. No, it doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, the American people are going to have to come to austerity measures in the 2030s. That is going to be a major financial problem. And when we get to that point of a lot of finger pointing in Congress, because all of a sudden the gravy train will have come to an end on, for example, federal entitlement programs, and then there's no money left for subsidies of certain energies, whether they be oil and gas or solar and electric, because God forbid we build nuclear plants, then we're going to have, I don't know what, a moment of national, gee, I wish we had done something different. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, the unfortunate part is that when that happens, there will be some economic instability that won't be able to just be brushed off. And Congress has never really been forward thinking or pragmatic. It's one of the great blind spots of mankind in general.
Okay, now I want to have a conversation as well on the alligator Alcatraz. This ICE facility, Mike, what is the message it's sending? Because, I mean, it looks like it's supposed to be designed to be nearly inescapable, right? I mean, if they tried, detainees would be faced with treacherous terrain, marshes, forest, dangerous wildlife like alligators. So making an escape attempt, it seems quite dangerous.
So let's start on that first. We were talking about political theater before, and there's a little bit of element in this political theater, and then there's also something that's true about it, which is ICE doesn't have a lot of detention centers. So I live 30 miles away from this facility. I'm literally on the west side as you go along the 75 corridor up the west side of the state. So I could bike ride to it right now. And you see here that's playing in the package, it's an open airfield because it is a private airport that's not really used that much. If you ever landed at Miami Airport, you'll see when the planes come in for landing, they tend to make a left turn and go around this area of land where this is going to be built upon. So the president was touring this facility center. Look, it's going to house right now potentially 1,000 to 1,500 people. The Miccosukee tribe that's down here has said, like, look, this is our land. This is not what it's being used for. DeSantis put an emergency order in place to be able to use the land right now to construct this. And I think when I was talking about with the political theater part of this is like, this is kind of what the campaign was built on, of like, we're going to get rid of these folks. When you try to get rid of folks, Don, you first have to detain them and put them somewhere. We can't put them in the federal correction system, right? Like, those things are overwhelmed already. So this is where like both things can be true at the same time. Like, we need a place to house folks. And I know people are going to say, well, there's some inhumane conditions and things like that. We have to see how this all shakes out. It's not open yet. He just started touring the facility today. But this is part of like both things are true at the same time. Like, we do have an issue, and the One Big Beautiful Bill addresses this in terms of funding that it's going to have for border enforcement and all the money that's going to be going on the immigration front. We don't have as many detention centers to house these folks. But then the other side of this is which states can help us, which states have the land, which states have this ability and infrastructure already set up to do something like this. Florida does have it. We have it right here in this area. And again, I can't get into the human rights aspect of it because it's not open yet. We haven't started putting people in there yet. I don't know of the folks that are going to be in this facility, how many of them have actually committed crimes, or how many of them are in that category of they just overstayed their welcome with respect to visas, et cetera, expirations. So we don't know any of that right now. All I can tell you is I try to look at things as practically as I can. ICE needs facilities. Florida offered it. And this is an area where, like I said, the treacherous part of this and all that, Don, it's not that treacherous. I mean, I'm okay with going over there. Like, I drive by, like, it's not as treacherous. But again, it's the infrastructure set around it. And it's the fact that Florida had this at its disposal, and they were able to leverage this for DHS and the president.
All right, Tony, what do you think? Is this a cost-effective way to do what it's set out to do, one of which is to deter illegal immigration?
So I certainly hope that it ends up being cost effective. Again, I'm very much in agreement with Mike on a lot of these things, that there two things can be true at once. Every administrative action is going to have an element of political theater. That's why you have comm staffers. That's why you have individuals who are in charge of optics for any campaign or administration. You have to market what it is that you're doing, because if not, the opposition will rule the roost and claim that you are opening some kind of concentration camp, which many have unfortunately and incorrectly already asserted. Now, I can build on Mike's previous questions with some data that we already have, because like Mike, I like from the ground up fundamental arguments instead of from the top down and bickering on the minutia. That's why I love this weekly segment so much. You can kind of get a lot done in that regard. So what we know about ICE facilities so far is that the care has been realistically humane, at least in regard to the original projections. So the administration said it was going to provide a certain level of care, a certain level of access, a certain level of oversight in these particular facilities. And then it delivered on those particular promises. So if you're looking at right now, again, yes, you do need ICE facilities. This is an incredibly popular program with Americans. Illegal immigration was for the first time in like 20 years, topped the economy in several polls during the campaign as being more important. So what we really need to see is this carried through in a manner that you can actually hold those who are being detained and do so in a way that doesn't require major facility construction in the middle of nowhere. And if you have prior airports, if you have, again, I as a former educator, you'd have empty school buildings that are sitting and moldering and rotting away, then using those buildings for something else, as we've seen using, for example, some schools in the Midwest as storage for infrastructure projects, using empty airfields. Again, I can't speak. I know, Mike, you're a lot closer. I don't know how actively used that airstrip was. If the land is there and the space is there, yeah, that's great. I do also take issue. There's a certain conservative commentator who I won't name, who does not have a beard, who recorded a video this morning in his car going, "I'm driving through treacherous land down to the Alcatraz alligator." Stop it. Stop it. I've been to the Everglades. It's gorgeous. Yeah, you shouldn't walk through some parts of it, but driving places? Get out of here. That's not dangerous. That's political theater.
Okay, well, it seems like it won't deter you guys, but certainly for me, I would not go to this place. But still, Mike, let me ask you, since you said it's not that treacherous, on a scale between symbolic and operational, where would you put this facility on that scale?
That you framed that perfectly, Don. That is the best way to land the airplane right there, for lack of a better analogy, because I think it's right in the middle. I think it's actually right in the middle, because I do, back to Tony's point, right? Like the operational aspect of this, repurposing assets that you already have to complete the task that the president and DHS want to do, which is they feel that there's an immigration problem. Now, again, the severity of the immigration problem, we could debate. I don't think it's as high as they say it is. They think it's as high. The court has helped ruled in some of those regards. They've invoked this Alien Enemies Act and things like that. And all these things are going through the court system. So they needed something from a practicality standpoint to house folks in a detention center, right? That's what they do. Obama built detention centers. Like we have to, call things out when they happen. And there was ire from some, and maybe not as much when Obama did that. The symbolic aspect of it, like you're saying, Don, is that this alligator Alcatraz and the nickname, those are what the comms people do. Those are what the marketing folks do. Trish McGoffin, who's over at DHS, I'm sure is loving that nickname, because for them, it, like you said, it's a deterrent, and that's what they want. They want it to be a symbol and a beacon of deterrence, whereas people like me and Tony are hoping that this is a practical standpoint, that it does accomplish what the administration wants to do, which is getting the bad actors out of here, detaining them somewhere before we send them on their way, once they've reached their due process, which is something else we could talk about entirely. But that's the whole point of this. And I think the administration, I don't know from a PR standpoint if they want it to be more symbolic versus the practical, but I do know from a Florida standpoint, DeSantis said, we have the land here, we have the resources, we have something that's not being used. Here's the practical part of it that we can help you fill in. You guys take over from the PR standpoint and talk about the symbolic part.
Okay, Tony, I want your response to what Mike is saying, but I also want to ask you, this is a small point, but did you see those memes of the alligators with ice hats? I mean, personally speaking, I feel like there's just a very narrow scope of situations where the government can post memes and get away with it. It's a small point on the overall picture, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, look, when you're looking at the modern optical framework and pattern psychology of interacting with voters, which is to say, when you're looking at governments posting memes, it can either be done well or can be a very cringy thing. No side of the aisle is immune to this, but it is a certainty that this administration has taken the current way of portraying situations and has stayed very up to date on it. You saw this in Obama's first term as well. His first term was marked by, again, I'll never forget the popular vine of Obama trying to dip a cookie into the glass of milk and saying, "Thanks, Obama." That was apropos. And there are cringier versions of this, of course. I'll never forget Hillary Clinton saying she's just chilling in Cedar Rapids. I mean, you get either way. And I've made my own fair share of memes. I have photoshopped AT-AT walkers down on the border before, because when you talk about policy, it is easier to identify some of the fear mongering from both sides through expressing their hyperbole in meme. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I taught myself Photoshop while I was supposed to be paying attention in biology too in college. So when you're looking at this kind of a thing, yeah, the alligators and ice hats is cute. But in the same way that I thought that Biden wearing aviators and always licking the ice cream cone was funny, it's taking certain, oh, this is such a terrible moment, oh, this is so serious, just saying, laugh it off, relax, calm down, just take a breath. And if you have a little bit of fun with it, I mean, I don't see the big issue with it. I just think that, yeah, I mean, thank you for not posting something really awful and cringy that makes my stomach turn over.
Okay, Mike, final thoughts. You know, some people calling the memes embarrassing.
Yeah, I think there's a delicate balance, like Tony said. I think, you know, we've always seen the cringy stuff from House Democrats doing the Choose Your Fighter video, and they export in and trying to hop on a,
you have to remind me of that one.
Yeah, sorry, Tony. But then you also see, like, I'll be honest, some of these White House ASMR posts that have been coming, especially from the White House account. It's one thing to do it from the individual who's maybe a comms secretary or something like that, but to do it from the account itself, I find it distasteful. But again, am I going to, you know, march and do a protest about it? I don't think so. There are other bigger fish to fry, to you know, use that analogy. But again, this is a very delicate balance, and art is subjective, Don, as everyone knows. So unfortunately, you know, we're going to have to live with, you know, what people continue to post on their social media.
Well, all right, that should do it for today. Mike, Tony, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Coming up, Columbia University settles a lawsuit brought by students. They say the Ivy League institution used false data to boost its nationwide ranking. We have that story and more when we come back.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father and as a husband. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
The The July 9th deadline for striking a trade deal with Washington is fast approaching, and President Trump isn't happy with Japan. Here are the details on that.
Writing on social media, the president singled out rice as a sticking point. He said Japan's refusal to import American-grown rice was a sign that countries had become spoiled with respect to the US. They won't take our rice, and yet they have a massive rice shortage, he wrote. Last week, Trump said a number of countries would get letters notifying them of the higher tariff rates they would face after July 9th. On that day, duties are scheduled to revert from a temporary level of 10% to as much as 50%. Speaking Monday, White House press spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said Trump would act unilaterally where there was no deal.
He is going to set the rates for many of these countries if they don't come to the table to negotiate in good faith. And he is meeting with his trade team this week to do that.
In June, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had floated the idea of extending the deadline for countries that were holding talks. Now he says he expects a flurry of deals before the deadline, with Trump alone to decide on any extensions. Autos are another flashpoint, with Trump accusing Japan of unfair trade in the sector. For its part, Tokyo's chief trade negotiator has warned of serious damage to Japan's economy if a 25% tariff on imported cars remains in place.
A presidential push for critical mineral and energy independence. President Trump has signed a new memorandum the White House says will streamline funding, cut government red tape, and reduce waste. The order directs agencies to share funding data with the National Energy Dominance Council. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum heads 3 agencies, which was created earlier this year. According to a White House fact sheet, it also fast-tracks development of a streamlined application for federal grants across multiple energy programs. The move is part of a broader push to reduce U.S. dependence on China for rare earths and critical minerals. According to a 2024 report, the U.S. is currently 100% import reliant for a dozen critical minerals. The Supreme Court will consider arguments on whether to end limits on party spending for congressional and presidential campaigns. At issue is whether federal limits on coordinated campaign spending violate the First Amendment. The Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 regulates fundraising and spending in U.S. elections. The legislation limits the amount of money that people, groups, and political parties can contribute or spend on a candidate. This isn't the first campaign finance case to reach the High Court. In 2020, the court's landmark decision in Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission struck down federal limits on independent expenditures. The 5-4 majority decision found such limits suppressed political speech, a violation under the First Amendment. The case will be argued in the fall. Columbia University has agreed to pay $9 million to settle a class action lawsuit. Students who brought the suit claim the Ivy League institution submitted false data to boost its U.S. News and World Report college ranking. Students said Columbia artificially inflated its ranking to reach the number 2 spot in 2022. Plaintiffs said the misrepresentations led them to enroll and allowed Columbia to overcharge them on tuition. The settlement covers about 22,000 undergraduate students at Columbia College, Columbia Engineering, and Columbia School of General Studies. The agreement covers the time period between the fall of 2016 and spring of 2022. In June 2023, Columbia said its undergraduate schools would stop participating in the rankings. Other universities, including Harvard and Yale, also stopped submitting data to U.S. News and World Report. Columbia denied wrongdoing in agreeing to settle. An update on the tragic murder of 2 firefighters in Idaho. Authorities have now identified the alleged shooter as 20-year-old Wes Rowley, a drifter who had been living out of his vehicle in the area. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the latest details in the ongoing investigation.
Firefighters and first responders lined the roads Monday as a procession was made for the fallen firefighters who were ambushed on Sunday. Authorities say the shooting began after firefighters responded to a blaze that Rowley allegedly set using flint. The fire quickly escalated into a deadly shootout when the first responders asked Rowley to move his vehicle. The firefight unfolded over several hours as the firefighters took cover behind their trucks. Despite their efforts, 2 firefighters were killed, and a third was wounded in what officials described as a barrage of gunfire. Authorities have identified the 2 fallen firefighters who were killed in the line of duty. Battalion Chief John Morrison can be seen here in a white uniform, and Battalion Chief Frank Harwood shown wearing a blue hat. Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Chief Chris Way says the firefighters Harwood led are devastated because they lost their North Star.
I was fortunate enough to be the chief that got to promote Frank to battalion chief, and I'm so proud of him.
Fire Department engineer Dave Tisdall was injured in the ambush. Tisdall was in critical condition and has since gone through 2 successful surgeries. Officials say suspect Wes Rowley later died by suicide in the mountains, with his firearm found next to him. Rowley was a California native who had family in the region. He was known to have expressed interest in becoming a firefighter himself, but fire officials said they were unaware of any actual applications or inquiries he ever made along those lines. A motive for the attack remains unclear. The incident sent shockwaves through Coeur d'Alene, a city of 55,000 near the Washington border.
Well, I just feel for the families.
Maybe a police officer, but you don't expect, your husband who's a firefighter to get shot at like this.
We don't think about firefighters being shot. It's just not something that crosses your mind until it does.
I guess there's sick people all over the country, no matter where you live, I guess, and even in nice places, Coeur d'Alene, we can have issues like this happen.
It's a difficult and dangerous job, but the danger is encountered every day is not something they would ever thought they would have to face. Face it, they did, with courage and honor. I'm proud of them.
Idaho Governor Brad Little ordered U.S. and Idaho state flags to be lowered to half staff until after the victims' memorial services. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Federal officials are working on revamping a program that provides compensation for people who suffer injuries from vaccines. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke with podcast host Tucker Carlson yesterday on the department's plans. Listen. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was established as part of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986. The same legislation also granted vaccine manufacturers immunity from lawsuits. Under the program, injury claims are brought before judges. They ultimately decide whether to grant payouts after hearing from petitioners and the government. Claims of injury from COVID-19 vaccines are currently filed with a separate Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. The Department of Health administers that program without judges by receiving petitions, analyzing them, and making determinations. Only 39 COVID-19 vaccine claims have been compensated as of June 1st, but all but 4 received under $9,000 in compensation. Turning now to concerns over an imported food ingredient. A federal agency says vanillin imports from China are hurting U.S. industry. It says cheap Chinese vanillin is sold in the U.S. at less than fair value. Vanillin is either derived from vanilla beans or is created chemically. A statement from the U.S. International Trade Commission says Chinese vanillin is sold in the United States at less than fair value and is subsidized by the Chinese state. Census Bureau data says that in 2023, the United States imported more than 2,500 tons of vanillin from China, worth almost $40 million. The discovery is likely to lead to duty charges on Chinese vanillin imports, making them less cheap, which can help restore the U.S. industry. The U.S. decision follows a similar European Union move last month on Chinese vanillin. Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosting foreign ministers of the Quad Alliance in Washington. How an increasingly aggressive Chinese Communist Party puts regional economies at risk. That and more after the break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting with his counterparts from India, Japan, and Australia, known as the Quad Alliance. And the goal is to keep peace in the Indian and Pacific Oceans in the face of a growing threat from the Chinese Communist Party. For more, NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us. Jack, good afternoon. What should we be watching for here?
Good afternoon, Don. Well, the message here is the same as it was in the Biden administration, and that's to keep a free and open Asia-Pacific region. Free and open meaning not influenced by the Chinese Communist Party, which seeks to block regional allies from the U.S. allies from carrying out resupply missions or just operating freely there, as we know that the Chinese Communist Party has been ramming Philippine Coast Guard vessels and carrying out military drills threatening allies in the region. Rubio said at a news conference today that the leaders, prior to going into closed-door talks, that the relationship with these countries has been gaining momentum in recent months, and that their alliance, strengthened, could benefit other countries in the region in the face of the growing military threat from China, like Taiwan and the Philippines. Here's Secretary Rubio earlier today.
There are many countries that are going to benefit from this partnership, even though they're not members of it. And it's not simply a security matter. It's largely, in many cases, about economic development. In fact, later today, we'll be hosting here in this building a number of companies. I think over 30 or 40 companies was the last count, representing all 4 of our countries, companies that are doing businesses in these countries or who are domiciled in these countries and who are going to be visiting here to talk about things we can work together on.
So a huge focus here on economic encouragement in these countries, a very different message from what we heard in the Biden administration, which is securing a safe region. Obviously, safety is the #1 priority, and then comes economy, but they're going the next step here. Rubio says that following these meetings is to start taking action, not just for regional security as China threatens to destabilize them, but also to promote economic development, particularly when it comes to critical minerals, which are used to make electronics, vital electronics like military-grade electronics, as well as iPhones. They also need to secure access to raw materials, but on the other side of this, they have to have the capability to process those raw materials, refine them into usable products. Going into the meetings, each of the foreign ministers addressed the press separately, with Japan discussing the role of the Quad Alliance in keeping peace in the region. Australia discussing the necessity of strengthening supply chains. And India with the hopes of hosting the next Quad summit, and also adding that they condemn terrorism that was in the face of recent terrorist attacks on India, which blamed Pakistan, leading to that short but deadly war about 2 months ago. President Trump brokered a ceasefire deal between those two countries, after which Pakistan nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. India, meanwhile, has differed that Trump's intervention has led to the ceasefire. Let's take a look.
A word about terrorism in the light of our recent experience. The world must display zero tolerance. Victims and perpetrators must never be equated, and India has every right to defend its people against terrorism, and we will exercise that right. We expect our Quad partners to understand and appreciate that.
This is a very important Quad meeting, as always, and unfortunately we meet against the backdrop of conflict and of escalating competition. So it has never been more important for us to harness our collective strength for peace, for stability, for prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and for all our peoples.
Currently, there is turmoil in the Middle East and Europe. The Indo-Pacific region, where our 4 countries are located, is the growth engine of the global economy, accounting for more than half of the world's population. With this, the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific region are essential for the prosperity of international community. The 4 countries, as major powers in the region, have an important role to play in ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region.
Now, this is the second time Rubio's hosting these Quad foreign ministers in Washington. He hosted them back in January on the 21st. That's the day after Trump was inaugurated. Obviously, this move underscores the importance of the Indo-Pacific region, Don.
So, Jack, CCP aggression in the Pacific is nothing new. It has been going on for years, but has the threat level changed?
Right. So you're right. The idea of the Indo-Pacific being at threat from the Chinese Communist Party goes back at least to the Biden administration, where they were faced with keeping peace while the CCP was causing problems. That's as China's Coast Guard and other forces have clashed with Philippine ships, ramming them, blocking them from carrying out resupply missions. As far as has it increased or changed, these jet flyovers, military drills over Taiwan and Japan airspace and Taiwanese waters, this may be on the rise. The top U.S. military officer, Admiral Samuel Paparo, says that the Chinese Communist Party's military aggression against Taiwan increased 300% in 2024. And he says that drills like these are not just drills. They're not military exercises, but rehearsals for what could happen if the CCP decides to invade Taiwan. Former President Biden last year was caught on a hot mic telling the Quad leaders that, quote, China is testing us, referring to the regime's increasing aggressive behavior in the region. Don, back to you.
Okay, Jack, thank you very much. Chinese state media reports that a new group has been formed at the very high levels of the Chinese Communist Party. Analysts tell us it's a sign that Xi Jinping's grip on power is weakening. The group was reportedly established on Monday to oversee major state affairs. It was formed after a meeting of China's Politburo Standing Committee, and that's the regime's top leadership body. Here's veteran China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan.
Although Xi Jinping still holds the titles of General Secretary of the CCP, Chinese regime leader, and head of the China's Central Military Commission, the actual power and decision-making dynamics have already shifted. That power has now been transferred to a newly formed body known as the Agency of Decision-Making, Deliberation, and Coordination. This agency can be seen as a supergroup with immense power, one that oversees everything from policymaking to implementation. It can intervene at every stage and holds the final say on major decisions, and now it's also a legitimate governing group.
According to Chinese state media, this new group has 3 major roles: decision-making, deliberation, and coordination. In other words, all major Chinese affairs will go through the group.
This can be seen as a major restructuring and transfer of Xi Jinping's power. It looks like the regime has officially declared a complete end to the era in which Xi held absolute authority.
The new group is an apparent challenge to what Xi has been working towards, a party where he alone is the central power. Since Xi took office in 2013, he has purged countless officials deemed not loyal to him and replaced them with loyalists. He also formed dozens of small groups across security, finance, diplomacy, defense, and so forth. He made himself leader of them all. This tactic gave him direct control over a broad range of national affairs. It was his strategy for asserting power. In 2018, under Xi's control, China's legislative body revised the Chinese constitution. It scrapped term limits for the regime's highest leadership positions. That meant he could theoretically stay in power for as long as he wanted. But last year, signs that Xi's grip on power is weakening started to show. For example, some of Xi's top military aides mysteriously disappeared. Some were removed from their posts.
In my view, this shift in Xi Jinping's power has, to a large extent, eliminated the immediate and urgent risk of war over Taiwan in the short term. However, in the long run, as long as the Chinese Communist regime still exists, the danger of a Taiwan Strait War and the threat of Taiwan being annexed will always remain.
Then who is leading the internal opposition against Xi? Tang and many China analysts point to several veteran regime leaders, including former regime head Hu Jintao, former Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao, and the Chinese military second-in-command Zhang Youxia. NTD was among the first media outlets to report on signs that Xi's power is declining. In recent months, newspapers, including Nikkei Asia and the New York Post, have also published analysis hinting at a major shakeup in Beijing.
Coming up, President Trump is expanding his brand, this time into perfumes. His latest launch, a fragrance line featuring names like Victory, 4547, and Fight, Fight, Fight. That story and more after the break.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today, and your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-360-7824.
Big things are happening at Mathis Homes. Save all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. Their suppliers have cut prices and they're passing those savings on to you. Get new lower prices with top name recliners as low as $199 and huge markdowns on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Now's your chance to save big for every room in your house. There's something for everyone. Plus, get 12-month no-interest financing and free delivery. Check out these price drop alerts and save at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Britain launches a new foreign influence registration scheme aimed at protecting national security, but China has been excluded from the top-tier requirements. This comes despite years of reports of Chinese spy operations in the UK. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more on the story.
Agents working for foreign states must now register their roles in the UK under a new foreign influence registration scheme. Russia and Iran are both under the most stringent top-tier requirements, but China has been left off this enhanced tier. The scheme requires anyone carrying out political influence activities on behalf of a foreign power to register with the British government or face prosecution. The rules cover activities such as political communications or lobbying, and were introduced in 2023 as part of efforts to strengthen national security. Agents working for states under the enhanced tier are required to declare any activity, not just political work. British Security Minister Dan Jarvis said this is about creating accountability and visibility so that covert influence operations have nowhere to hide. Following the announcement in April that Russia would be included in the enhanced tier, Conservative Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phil said it was astonishing that China had not received similar treatment. He accused the government of prioritizing economic links over national security. Beijing has been repeatedly accused of seeking to covertly influence British politics and academia. In 2023, the Intelligence and Security Committee said China has successfully penetrated every sector of the UK's economy. It also said China is engaged in aggressive interference in academia to ensure criticism of China is suppressed. Later that year, the UK's Domestic Security Service, MI5, said Chinese spies had covertly approached more than 20,000 people in the UK. It came amid worries that cutting-edge research was being stolen from businesses by China. Member of Parliament Ian Duncan Smith asked on X why the government decided China doesn't pose a significant threat. He highlighted numerous issues, such as China's daily cyber attacks on the UK, the threat to invade Taiwan, China's support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and for Iran, and the genocide of the Uyghurs, and said that given all this, China should be treated as a threat to the UK. Luke de Pulford, co-founder and executive director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, said that without the more stringent requirements on China, British police and security services will have fewer tools to address Chinese influence activities. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
President Trump is now selling a line of perfumes and colognes under the Trump brand. One is called Victory 45-47, while another is called Fight, Fight, Fight. Both are available for men and women. The president promoted one of them on Truth Social today. He wrote, "Trump fragrances are here. They're called Victory 45-47 because they're all about winning, strength, and success. Victory 45-47 retails at around $250. The Fight, Fight, Fight version costs $199. The fragrances are the latest addition to products sold by President Trump. Others are golf clubs, merchandise, and more." Up next, the California Attorney General is suing the Trump administration, challenging the sharing of personal health data with ICE. Stay with us.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your